Jake for the State podcast. And this is the call for every red-blooded, God-fearing, liberty-loving patriot to prepare yourself, take your position, stand your ground, and advance the cause of freedom. Let's go.
All right, welcome back to the Jake for the State podcast. My guest today is Dr. James Taylor, candidate for state superintendent here in Oklahoma. And probably, I would argue, there's not a more controversial race in the state, maybe not a more significant race in the state. And so all eyes right now are on the state superintendent race. Of course, we're in a runoff, and Dr. James Taylor joins me today to talk about this. Dr. Taylor, welcome.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely.
I'm thrilled to death.
Well, it's my honor to have you here. And, you know, I've been following you for a while.
Yeah, we've been friends for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. And I so appreciate you came over to my watch party. Of course, the results on my end did not turn out the way I expected, but it was such an honor to have you there and to be able to announce that you had made it into the runoff. And so that was a great opportunity there at my watch party. But, you know, of course, you and your beautiful wife have been in the trenches for a while. Not only have you been in the public school system serving families and students, but you've also run against Congressman Tom Cole multiple times. I want to talk about that. But first, let's a little bit on your background, your bio. What has James Taylor been up to this point?
Well, I'm a child of God. I am a pastor. I was called into ministry in 1972. Did my first internship in 77. So I've been in the pulpit and preaching and teaching and working with young people since 1977. Wow. I've been in the classroom for over 18 years. And teaching, to me, is teaching, whether I'm teaching about the Word of God or whether I'm teaching the First Amendment. Teaching is teaching. And it's just a matter of the subject, and that's what it is. So I have been involved with stuff like that for a long time. I love teaching. That's really my cup of tea.
Oh, yeah.
And I love doing that.
Well, that's where we're kind of wired the same, as I just love teaching as well. You know, taught at the university level as an adjunct professor for several years. But like you said, teaching is teaching. I get the same thrill of teaching my 11-year-old as I do standing in front of a massive congregation.
Right.
So I love it. It's in my blood. I know it's in yours. Your time in the public school system, tell me about that journey.
Well, you know, it's funny because I did subbing, and I don't even count those years in that. So that's actually would even longer. But I've done 2 long-term sub situations.
While you were also pastoring?
I'm always pastoring.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pastoring now and teaching. I'm doing bivocation. I teach at Little Lakes High School, and so that's what I've always done. But I've worked with kids for a long time. I've coached, been very successful at that. I don't tell people about that because
what sport?
I did track. We were state runners-up 1 year and state champs 2 years in a row.
Oh, wow. What school was that?
That was in Arizona at Ironwood High School.
Okay.
And at the same school, I coached freshman baseball and loved that. We lost one game. That was the coach's fault. Well, what had happened was we were good. We were really good. We pretty much beat people pretty badly. We averaged, with the one team we were playing them, we'd played them twice. This was going to be the third time we were going to play them. And we'd average beating them 17-3. So I said, we're going to start the second team for the first 3 innings. And we got behind, and we ended up losing 6-5, which is okay. I can live with that.
So not a huge loss.
That was the coach's decision. But I don't tell people that because then they want you to coach all the time.
Right.
And so I just keep that kind of low key.
It's kind of like when you have a truck, everyone asks you
to borrow,
right?
Yeah. So I love what I do. I was a youth pastor for years, and working with kids, and so it's just in my blood. It's like you say, it's what I love doing.
And so you subbed some long-term
position. In fact,
was that in Oklahoma?
No, those were one in Texas and one in Arizona.
Okay.
So those, I don't count those as a part of my. I should, but I don't. So technically, I make it over 20 years. But anyway, teaching is a fun thing for me to do because what it does is you get to connect with the people. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I'm late in coming to this the superintendent because I'd be out of the classroom.
Yes.
I love being in the classroom that much. And in fact, my superintendent at my school, about 3 years ago, he suggested that I go get my principal certificate so that I could be a principal. He recognized leadership in me in that. And I looked into it, but the problem was to do it then, I would have had to do it on Wednesday night. Well, that's Bible study night. That ain't happening. That ain't happening.
Talk about priorities, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the number one priority. The priority is God. And so I didn't do that, but they recognized that. And so I got into this thing because, let me just share I've been asked to run for this position since January of last year. I kept saying, no, I'm not going to do it. I didn't want to do it. Well, one day a person said, at least just pray about it. And I said, okay. So I said, I'll pray about it. Because, see, I'm like Moses in the wilderness. Unless God says move, we ain't doing anything.
Oh, right.
And so I interpreted the silence, meaning I don't have to do anything. And I was pretty pleased with that. Well, one day in February, that's when I got in, mid-February. One day in February, Ben from Weatherford, he had me speak on my book before. And so he called out the clear blue and says, hey, I think you ought to run for state superintendent of schools. And I said, hey, Ben, how's the weather out there? Well, we talked. And I just thought, man, that's odd. So I go home and tell my wife, I said, honey, weird thing, she knows Ben. I said, weird thing happened. Ben from Weatherford called and said, you should run for state superintendent. Then Rafaela, and she's a godly woman.
Your wife.
Yes. She says, well, I guess I ought to tell you what I did. And it's like, what'd you do? And she said, I laid out a fleece. Now, when Gideon laid out his fleece, it wasn't to find out God's will, it was to confirm God's will. And so what she says is, I laid out a fleece. I asked God, if you were supposed to run for superintendent, then 3 people from across the state would all ask you to run for superintendent all in the same day. Very specific.
So this is all her fault.
Yeah, it's hers and Ben's. Well, oddly enough, after that, 30 minutes, I kid you not, Jake, 30 minutes after that, I go to the bank to make a deposit. Now, my banker, we've been friends. He actually, when I ran against Cole, he voted for me. He actually still has my sign, wanted me to sign my sign. And I'm like, yeah, that and $10 to get you a cup of coffee at McDonald's. And so so out the clear blue, he says, JT, I've been thinking, I really think you would make a great superintendent of public schools. I said, really? And just kind of, let it go. Well, by the end of the day, Jake, 5 people. 5 people. So I said to my wife, well, honey, your fleece came to fruition. I think that means you're supposed to run. And she says, no. I specifically asked God if it's supposed to be you. And so that's what I said, okay. So I just talked with the Lord. And so we got in late. But God was in the whole process. I mean, just the miracle of what God did. And I think, actually, honestly, I'll be real candid. I think your supporters who were supportive of you were also supportive of me.
Oh, they were. I know that.
I think that's one of the other reasons why we were able to move in, because the grassroots was there, and those folks, I think, voted for me, and I'm grateful.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you, we saw people rising up and are seeing people rising up like never before, maybe not in a long time. But there's a great enthusiasm and excitement right now, and looking at what is possible if they simply stand up.
Yes.
And, I didn't make it in, but we made a big impact. But others like yourself have made it into the runoff. We want to see it get all the way through.
Yes,
I agree with your banker. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm all for you. And, I think that it's a significant time today, very unique in national history, but in our state too. I want to dig into that, but first talking about your time as a teacher, and then I also want to look at your time running against Tom Cole and what led to that. But just your background in education, what have you taught? You talked about your time as a full-time sub for a while, or a long-term sub, and then when did that transition to a role as an actual teacher in the classroom?
Well, it transitioned when I was at a church that could not pay a full salary.
Right.
So that's when I went back to the classroom as a dual bivocational. And so that's what it is. So I teach history. I teach early U.S. history. I teach government. I currently teach current events. And so that's the type of things that I teach, which is, no pun intended, it's tailor-made for me because early U.S. history deals with the foundation of our government, the Judeo-Christian principles of how our government was founded, how we established ourselves, and then the government class is what it is. I teach my kids that at the end of the school year, they have to take a final. I mean, everybody has to take the final, but the final weighs less than what their project is, and their project is they have to create their own country. They literally have to. Everything has to align. They have to create a flag, and their flag has to tell the story, just like our flag tells a story. They have to create a constitution. They have to create a Declaration of Independence. They have to create a national anthem. They have to create their own money. They have to create. In fact, I tell them, don't you dare superimpose my picture on a $1 bill. And so what one group did is they took a gold brick and put my picture on it. They got extra credit for that. Their country has to align. So if they pick to be a dictatorship, then they can't have free elections. Everything has to align. They have to have at least 3 branches of government. They have to have a summary of how the country came into existence. They have to have an economic basis for how their country supports itself. So, I mean, it's a pretty elaborate thing.
I love that.
Because I want to know what they know about what I just taught them.
Yeah.
My kids know how our government functions. At the end of class, they have to do it. They're in groups of 4, and they have to do it. And then that's all done, they have to defend their country. One of the strongest countries was they called themselves America. Not America, and you couldn't say America. You had to say
capital M.
America.
Yeah.
That's how you have to say it. And they put in pictures of their defense system and how it all works. And then just to make sure everybody knew, they put a mushroom cloud that says, "If you mess with us, this is what's going to happen to you."
Yeah.
And so the kids have to defend themselves. They have to defend their country. And this is what I do in the classroom. These type of things, because it's hands-on for them.
Yeah.
Kids learn different ways, and I utilize all the different methodologies that they can learn so that they can learn it and internalize it so that they can be citizens who will be able to go out and vote and know why they're voting and what's going on.
How critical is it for a state superintendent to have this experience, the classroom experience?
It is critical because the teachers are ground zero. Our teachers, we in our state, we're having trouble keeping teachers. There's lots of reasons for that. But from the leadership perspective, we can do some things in that position to help them. For example, first-year teachers know their subject matter, but their classroom discipline is lacking. Therein lies a huge problem because when they are overwhelmed, they can't handle it. And so that's part of why we are losing some of them. My strength is classroom management. And because of technologies today, I want to duplicate those things by with technology of or videos or YouTube or whatever. There's ways that we can do it, and even being there live, so that we can have our teachers equipped day one, because the most important day of the school year is day one. What you need to do will determine what happens. If you haven't done what you need to do on day one, come the end of September, your class is chaotic.
Oh, yeah.
And the rest of the year, it gets worse.
Set the tone early, huh?
You set the tone early, and that matters.
Yeah.
That matters. And so that's my strength. So that's what I want to bring to the classroom. And part of it, if you can allow me to share this story, because this really does affect how that'll be done. My superintendent told me to tell everybody where I go this story. Here's the story. As a teacher, as I just mentioned, the first day of school, first week you have maybe 1 or 2 days. I know this year we're going to have 2. And so I always make sure that all of my students have an A on their first assignment. And because I tell them, I'm going to call your parents. And their eyes get big as saucers and they're mortified. And I said, no, this is positive. I'm going to call and brag upon you. Now, they don't even know what to do with that. So I call their parents and I say, hey, I'm Dr. James Taylor. I have your child in early U.S. history. They currently have an A in my class, and I anticipate they'll continue to do A work. Well, what happens is every year, I hope this year will be different, but every single year I've done this. In fact, I even did this when I was a long-term sub to introduce myself to the parents because I'm their new teacher. But and I just realized I did that when I was a subbing too. But so I call, and what happens is that builds a relationship with the parents in a positive way. And here's what happens. Every year I have a parent that'll say, you're the first teacher that's called and says something positive about my child.
Oh, I'm telling you.
That's horrible.
I think everybody listening is saying the same thing. I've never experienced that.
Well, you're right, and that's the problem. And so what happens is parents, that builds a healthy relationship with me and the parents, that builds a healthy relationship with me and the child. But here's what it did with the administration. When I got to Little Axe, 3 weeks after I got there, now in 18 years in a classroom, you never see the superintendent. They're never on campus. I mean, they're doing their thing.
Yeah.
Well, during my planning time, in comes the superintendent. And I'm like, uh-oh, what happened? Because you don't see the soup. And he says to me, he's the one who told me to tell people this. He says, you have no idea how you have impacted the Little Axe community.
Wow.
I have parents calling me saying, I want my younger children to have Dr. Taylor when they get into high school. So what's happened is my schedule has been completely changed. I get all the sophomores at Little Axe High School. They come to my class, and that's what they get. They get the truth of what's happening. Now, the reason why I share that is this. I've already shared to you what the parents say, what the parents are saying. I've already shared what the superintendent says. Now I want to share with you what my students, and with their permission, I get to share this because they asked me. We have a class called advocacy. What advocacy is like a study hall, but a little bit better. You have your advocacy students from freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. She graduated, and she writes these words, and she says, and I quote, "You've been the best role model and teacher. I want you to know that you'll always be in my heart for how much you have impacted my life for the better. You're truly an amazing and the most inspirational person from the school. I pray you have an amazing summer and an amazing candidacy." And she says her name, Love, and she put her name. And then in parentheses, she writes, "Your favorite." Now, the funny thing about that is this. My students argue in class in front of me about who my favorite is. And they'll say, well, Dr. Taylor, aren't I your favorite? Sure, whatever you say. Now, that means I'm doing something right in the classroom where the students feel valued and important. Here's another one. I want to share this one because this one says a lot. This one I got the last day of school. I only had this student for 5 months. She was removed from school. There were some issues going on, and she ended up in doing EPIC instead. And she's doing very well in EPIC. Here's what she says. "Dear Dr. Taylor, you are an amazing teacher for the 5 months I was in your class. I learned something new about the world and government every day. Still keeping an eye out for how much we are in debt." Now, I showed them the debt clock. Mm-hmm. Nah, you don't want to see that. Yeah. And they're like, "Why is it doing that?" I said, "Exactly." Because the thing is just, anyway, she continued, and I'm glad that she's still looking at that.
Right.
She's learned something, and she's still looking at that. She goes on to say, "You showed me a lot of stuff in class I would have never learned through anyone else. I appreciate the time you took teaching me. Thank you so much for allowing me to be able to sit in your classroom every day. You always told us, quote, 'I love you,' end quote, after every bell just to make sure everyone knew that they were loved by someone. Even on my hardest days, I knew walking into your classroom would make it better." Now, here's why I share that. That shows what's going on in my classroom as a teacher. I want to bring that same passion and enthusiasm to every single classroom in Oklahoma. Now, for the audience and those, if you want that in your classroom, then I'm the person you need to vote for.
Yeah, well,
if you don't, then there's other options.
I have to say, it's so impactful for something that could be said as so small. It's just a call to the parents saying, "I believe in your kid."
That's right.
And what that affirmation does both to the parent and the home life.
Yes.
I mean, that even impacts home life.
Absolutely.
But then the dynamic in the classroom, and I believe, of course, you can't mandate every teacher does that. But that model alone, setting the model at the top is so critical.
It is.
And to have that experience and this testimony of saying, "Hey, this is what I did in my classroom, and it transformed everything," that I believe is so impactful and necessary for true systemic change across the state.
Agreed.
Because I think everyone's arguing what we're seeing in the classroom is a spillover from what's happening in the home. And so if you can have an inroad to the home,
Exactly.
you're going to change the classroom.
Right. Well, see, that's the whole point. Everybody knows that the more parental involvement, the better the kids do. Now, here's what you will hear from teachers, and I've heard this so many times. Well, the parents aren't engaged. Then you go out and you engage them.
Right.
Because every school, every teacher has their parents, their home number, their cell phone numbers, and their work numbers.
Yeah.
You can find somebody at one of those numbers and engage them. And it doesn't have to be a big deal. And it's just a little simple thing that I do. I do it every year. I'm doing it again this year. I do it every year. And here's our problem. The perception of our public schools is going down. In 2024, the perception was that there was 41% approval of our public schools. In 2025, that dropped down to 31%. So we're going in the wrong direction. And if you can have, let's say you have 10% of the teachers across our state call and brag upon their students, that's going to improve.
Yes.
If we can get 50%, that's going to change things. Now, what this does is gives the parent, the teacher, and the students a connection where they're getting to know one another. I've been told that during parent-teacher conferences, I have more parents come for parent-teacher conference than the other teachers do.
I think that would be a dream come true for teachers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the ongoing issue is none of the parents show up to parent-teacher conferences.
Yeah. And so it's there. Those are the things that I want to bring into by example.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to. I'm not going to ask these people to do something that I'm not doing. And the teachers, I think when the teachers look at what's going on, I'm going to support them. Teachers want somebody who has their back. Teachers want to be able to teach. Teachers want to be able to have the necessary supplies for their classroom. And that includes textbooks, because sometimes they don't even have that. And they need all those type of things. And I'm going to make sure that they have those.
Okay, so let's drill down into that real quick about funding.
Mm-hmm.
Is the fact that they don't have their textbook in the class, which you would think would be one of the most fundamental, essential items, is a textbook. Is this a matter of funding? What are the core issues with our educational system in Oklahoma, and how do we fix it?
Well, funding is an issue. And funding is the dominant factor in our state's budget. Education dollars go there. We have increased education dollars from 2018 to now by 51%. And so we are, and that's the largest outlay of money for our state budget. You would think with that type of increase that our numbers would go up. They have not gone up. They've actually gone down. Mm-hmm. And part of that is, now that's going to change. When the legislatures passed where they are bringing back phonics, because phonics was removed, and so they're bringing back phonics. And the kids will be able to learn from that. And that's going to make a big difference. The numbers are going to go up just simply, no matter who's going to be in charge. The numbers are going to go up because of that, and they're bringing it cursive, and they've allowed for additional funding for reading specialists. And it's going to allow for 20, but 20 for a state that has 541 different school districts. It's not going to go very far. But it's a start. It's a start. And so the idea for me is to utilize seniors, high school kids that can go into these elementary schools and help with the reading, and so that you're not having to pay those kids. These are some kind of help that they can do as some type of project with their schools to help their kids do better. And so funding is a big issue. And teachers spend their own money all the time in their classroom. I know I do all the time. And so, I'm not complaining about that. That's what I expect to do, because I want what's best for my kids. Yeah. And so I'm going to spend what I need to spend and not try to, get it from the state because it ain't coming. It's not coming. And so I think that if we can arrange to where the fiscal dollars can be utilized in a very real way. And let me just say this. I have demonstrated fiscal responsibility in this campaign, where I ran a statewide campaign and we spent just a little over $7,000 in a statewide campaign is just absolutely unheard of.
Right,
Literally
right.
unheard of.
It is. I mean, I thought I was doing good at $80,000, but $7,000, and of course you said you came in a little bit later in this race. But why? Why is that? Is it intentional, or is that just the way it happened?
Well, I think it's God. Well, I know it's God. But let me just put it this way: in the governor's race, you guys had what? Did you have nine? Nine candidates. Yeah. In the lieutenant governor, there were 7. In our race, there were 7. I mean, and then you got the other races. Well, that's all the state where everybody's trying to get the same dollars, and there's only so much money that's available.
Right.
And we got in this thing late, and so we had to be fiscally responsible with everything. And our victory came through prayer. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. What we did was, because we had to decide how we can best utilize money. Now, we had money because we were doing a statewide. We wanted to get a walk list. Well, that was going to cost us $1,200. So we had to decide, is walking, knocking on the door is going to be the best way of using our money? Because you're not going to, for statewide, there's no way you're going to get to every door. So we decided to put that into signs. And we only had 700 signs across the state. I mean, you and I have seen 700 signs from one candidate on a corner.
Oh yeah, right.
On one corner. And here's what we did. We said, God, we know you like multiplication. Your word tells us you can increase things 10-fold, 20-fold, 100-fold. We're not asking for that, Lord. We're asking that for every sign you increase that 1,000-fold for us. And so that's how we approached everything, that God would multiply everything that we had so that it would get to where it needed to be, and it would happen. So we did not have, we would ask, hey, you can donate online and whatnot. We did not get a whole lot of donations. It's funny, that night after we left the party, we left a little early.
Right.
At about 10:30, we get a phone call from a reporter. And first question, because there was still 5% of the election uncounted, but it was clear we were going to be in the runoff. And she says, how in the world did this happen? And I said, this was clearly the hand of God. God orchestrated this. Next question, I don't understand. You spent a little over $7,000. One of your opponents spent almost $200,000 and they lost. How is it that this happened? I just simply said, ma'am, you're not listening. This is the hand of God. I said, here's what you guys do. You guys look at 2 things and you determine from that if a candidate, and this is your word, is viable. What you look at is how much money they have raised, and you look at how many people have donated, and if that number doesn't suffice you, then you say they're not viable. You guys looked at that and you completely discounted the grassroots that was powerful, and you completely ignore the power of prayer. Now, all that stuff never made it in the report.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But that's what it is.
Front page.
So God orchestrated that, and He took the little money that we had and made it. He made it go further than we'd ever had. I mean, that was the hand of God. Yeah. There is no reason on paper. We had no paid consultant. They always tell you got to get that. We didn't have one. We didn't even have a Facebook presence. We had a little tiny, but when I ran for Congress, my wife went with me, and so she would take pictures and then we'd post. Well, our son, we've adopted 2 kids. We got them when they were 1 and 2. They're now 7 and 8. But our son, he's level 3 autistic. We tried to bring him to places, and he's got about 20 minutes, and then it's over. And so she had to stay home, and she couldn't be with us so I never had someone to take pictures. I'd go to these events, and there was nothing there. So I had no presence whatsoever. It did not exist. And so, again, all these things that they tell you, we didn't have money, we didn't have this, we didn't get to knock a single door ourselves. There are people that were like knocking for you that would probably say, hey, James Taylor too. Yeah. But we didn't get to do that. So everything conventional wisdom tells us that there's no way we should have been there. That we should have, on paper, we should have never won. But I look at it the same way. On paper, the American Revolution, we should have never beat the British, but on paper. But one thing, but God.
That's right.
But God intervened and changed all that. And so that's and this is what's going on now. The hand of God is just amazing what He's doing.
Well, I tell you, I can already I want to have a second interview,
Okay.
and maybe
I love
even a third. We'll see how
right.
however many we can squeeze in before the
Sounds
runoff, because I want to drill down on the specifics about the classroom, about your role as superintendent, about that relationship with the state board, with the legislature, all of these things. But for this interview, I'd like to just stay right here on faith, our role of faith, on our belief in God. And you have your book sitting right here that I've read. It's biblical, not political. And
pull that up a little bit so they can see.
Yeah, and so I want people to check it out. But tell me the premise of this book, and then I want to talk about what you see as the role of faith, the role of the Bible, the role of prayer in our classrooms.
Yeah. Well, this is really interesting because it's biblical, not political. You know, if 30 years ago, if a pastor got up and said, marriage is between a man and a woman, the congregation said, preach it, brother. Today they say, hey, pastor, why are you being political?
Hold on, right.
Why are you being political? Well, it's not. God spoke about marriage long before there was a United States of America.
Yeah.
And so the role it plays is significant. I don't take a mule-sized choker Bible into my classroom because I don't have to. Our legislatures have allowed for Bibles in our classroom. That's not a problem. And so what I do is I use original documents. I have replicas of original documents all throughout my classroom that the kids can use. In fact, I'm just going to show you what one of them is right here. This is, in my class, this is the textbook. I purchased these for my kids. This is their textbook, Constitution and the Declaration of Independence.
Wow.
This is what they have. Inside my classroom, I have lots of replicas. This is one. This is the actual size of the New England Primer. The New England Primer was the reader, first grade reader, be the equivalent of a first grade reader, how kids learn to read in American history. And so you can see, as you go through there, you'll see, yeah, it's getting fragile. I got to get another one because they're starting. I pass it around. I let the kids hold it. They get to see it.
Yeah.
They get to touch it. And what they're shocked by is the size because their books are huge.
Yeah.
And what this did, when they start looking at the alphabet, it'll start in A, and then it'll have a Bible verse associated with that. B, another Bible verse. All these things that it has that are talking about God. This is the foundation of our country. So I use the original documents. Like, for example, when John Adams, our second president, he makes the comment that it is our Constitution was made for moral and religious people. Now, the word religious there is not the way it's used today. We use religion to mean all religions. That's not how they used it. They meant Christianity. Yeah. And they're saying that our Constitution was made for moral and Christian people. It is totally inadequate for any other. It cannot govern.
Yeah.
And those two pillars, morality and Christianity, if one of those pillars is gone, we're in trouble. Now, we can look at the issue of morality right now, and we got some issues because the two things in the news are the Epstein files. I still can't believe that's still in the news. And then, of course, with the Diddy parties. The kids know about the Diddy parties.
Yeah, right.
And so those are moral things there. Christianity was on the decline. But since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, there's been a revival, not just in America, but across the globe.
Yeah.
And thousands of people are coming to Christ. So what you do is when you look at these things, we'll take the kids and we'll look at Valley Forge. What a horrible winter that was. We lost more people to death and disease than British bullets in that Valley Forge that winter. And what I have my kids do, we talk about it, and then their assignment will be they read the letters from the people who are actually in Valley Forge, and they do assignment, and George Washington, and they find out that these guys are saying it was God who sustained us. It was Providence who made it possible for us to be here today. And these kids are reading what you don't have to take a mule-sized Bible and hit people over the head with it. All you got to do is use original documents. I'm sorry, I get a little excited about that.
Right.
But all you got to do is use original documents because that's the foundation of our country.
Yeah.
I think one of the classes I would absolutely love to teach would be the Declaration of Independence and the Scriptures.
Right.
The Word of God, it's just incredible.
You could argue that the Scriptures themselves are probably the founding document of this nation.
They are.
And I love this right here. Let me just read this. It's right here at the very beginning. It says, the young infant's or child's morning prayer. I'm reading from this primer, the New England primer that he brought, and it says, Almighty God, the maker of everything in heaven and earth, the darkness goes away, and the daylight comes at thy command. Thou art good and doest good continually. I thank thee that thou hast taken such care of me this night, and that I am alive and well this morning. Save me, O God, from evil all this day long, and let me love and serve thee forever, for the sake of Jesus Christ thy Son. Amen. And this is a prayer that they used to teach young
Every
kids
day.
in school.
Yeah.
And so when they say, when individuals say, there is no place for prayer in school, there is no place for the Bible in school, there is no place for God in school, what's your response?
Whenever they say something like that, they totally are ignoring history, because they're telling me they don't know history, because the history of America is the Bible. You know, I just did a 2 weeks ago, not this week, but the week before, I just did my sermon was America's Godly Heritage, showing the history of how this country's foundation was. Let me give you one. In 1811, there was a Supreme Court case, Ruggles versus People. This is an amazing case. In this case, there was a man who went around saying negative things about the Dalai Lama, about Muhammad, and about Jesus Christ. The court ruled that what he said, and this was only a page long, so it's easy to read compared to now they send out books, but with their court rulings. Mm-hmm. But it was only a page long, and the court said he said about the Dalai Lama and what he said about Muhammad doesn't matter. They're not even going to address, because those guys are imposters. Not my words, court.
Wow.
They then defined blasphemy. Now, this is interesting, because when we read scriptures are kind of vague on what blasphemy is. There's not a real clear definition of what it is. But what happened was they printed what this man had said about Jesus Christ. And what he said, and this is not my words, but the court's writing it down, and my wife says I should probably clean it up, but this is what he said. He said, quote, "Jesus Christ is a bastard, and his mother must be a whore," end quote. The Supreme Court declared that was blasphemy. But the Supreme Court ruled, this is amazing, whatever strikes at the root of Christianity tends manifestly to the dissolvement of civil government. What they said was an attack on Jesus Christ is an attack on Christianity. And an attack on Christianity is an attack on the foundation of the United States of America. This man was sentenced to 3 months in prison and fined $500. That was in 1811. After the First Amendment had been in play. So, I mean, I
didn't learn that in public school.
No, well, my kids learned it. My kids are learning it because that's why you use original documents.
Yeah.
And the kids get to see, because that one I put out, and that's just a single page. That's a single one. They get a copy of that. And so, again, you use the original documents, and problem solved. If you go in there thinking, I'm going to be a Bible thumper and just thump the Bible, nobody really wants that.
We're not trying to teach theology. We're not trying to teach a particular denomination.
Teach
right?
history.
Right, just history.
History.
American history
exactly
is inundated with Bible references, with prayers, with calls to Almighty God. I mean, you can't avoid it.
Yeah.
I guess you can if you're very selective.
It is. The textbooks are moving away from stuff that's referencing to God. Because there's a disconnect. There's the revisionist historians, I guess they don't want anything to do with God. But when you look at the original documents, that stuff is just laced with it.
Yeah.
You can't get away from it.
Wow. So. Dr. Taylor, what I wanted to accomplish in this interview is for people to get to know you. And I think that we've done that to a small degree. I want to have you back and
I would be honored.
Dig into some specifics about our classroom, about our districts, about our superintendents, the structure of education in Oklahoma. But I'm going to wrap it up here, and I'll let you speak directly to the people as we wrap up this interview. How can people find out more about you and your campaign?
Well, you can go to Taylor4OK, the number 4, taylor4ok.org. There you can volunteer, you can donate, you can get a sign, request a sign, you can get information about what we're doing. And I'll be out there. My schedule is out there and going different places.
Yeah, all over the state.
So we're crisscrossing the states. Yeah, less than 2 months. And so, and really, the greatest thing that you guys can do for us is continue to pray for God's favor. Because whatever happens is what God wants to happen. And so that's what we need is God's favor. That's the most important thing that you can do for us.
Amen. Dr. James Taylor, so appreciate you, sir.
Thank you so much, brother.
All right. And thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure, of course, to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.
Okay.
Jake for the State Podcast, and this is the call for every red-blooded, God-fearing, liberty-loving patriot to prepare yourself, take your position, stand your ground, and advance the cause of freedom. Let's go.